In session 5 here, we're now going to take a look at our next basic mathematical computation function operation, and that is division. We've already taken a look at addition and subtraction as well as multiplication. Now we're taking a look at the fourth basic operation of math called division. We're going to once again finish through the apple example that we used in each of the other three main operations. Okay, we start off with a group here of 8 apples. You count them all, you can see that there are 8 here. Well, to illustrate division, what we could ask is if we started off with those 8 apples and I said to you, I want you to break those apples into groups of 2. My question being, how many groups of 2 can you make out of those 8 apples? Well, the first thing that we could do is just go and start breaking them apart ourselves. Well, here's our first group of 2 right there. Here's our second group of 2. There's our third group of 2. And there is our fourth group of 2. So out of those 8 apples, we can break groups of 2 into 4 separate groups out of those 8. So we just went ahead there and broke them apart. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and erase these lines because I want to illustrate another way of looking at division, and that is looking at it as repeated subtraction. If you remember in the multiplication, we looked at it as repeated addition, where you were adding the same number to itself multiple times. Well, in division, you're actually subtracting the same number multiple times. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's go over here to the right and take a look. The 8 that we're starting with here at the top represents the 8 apples. And the question is, I want you to divide those 8 apples into groups of 2 and tell me how many groups that you can get. Well, we're now going to look at it as repeated subtraction. So the first thing we're going to do to this 8, remember we're dividing by 2, so what we're going to do is subtract 2 from our 8. 8 minus 2 is 6. Well, to illustrate that we're subtracting here and crossing out or removing, I'm going to come over here and cross out those 2 apples. So we've already subtracted 2 from 8 one time, and that left us with 6. Those are the 6 apples over here. Okay, we now have 6 apples left. And remember, our question was to go break them into groups of 2. So what we're going to do now is subtract 2 again. 6 minus 2. Well, let's come back over here to our 6 that are left and cross out 2 more. 6 minus 2 equals 4. This 4 here represents the 4 apples that are left. So up to this point, we have subtracted 2 twice from the number 8. We subtracted it once here, which left us with 6. We subtracted it again here, which left us with 4. We are now going to repeat our subtraction. We're going to repeat by subtracting by 2 again. Let's come over here and cross out those 2. 4 minus 2 now leaves us with 2. And here are our 2 apples over here that we're left with. So we're going to take that 2 and subtract it by 2 more. Come over here, we're going to cross out our last 2 apples. 2 minus 2 is 0. And this 0 indicates that we now have 0 apples left. So my question is, how many times did we have to subtract 2 from 8? To give us nothing left over, or 0. Well, we had to subtract it 1 time there, another time there, a 3rd time there, and a 4th time there. So the answer to our question, you have 8 apples and you're dividing them into groups of 2. How many groups can you get? You can get 4 groups. And once again, we can get that by repeated subtraction. 8 minus 2 4 times gives us a leftover of 0 and shows us that we have 4 groups of 2 that we can make out of 8. Well, taking a look at the next screen here, we're going to now illustrate division in a similar way that we illustrated multiplication. And remember, in multiplication we used a rectangle, and we said that one way of visualizing multiplying by 2 numbers is that you find a rectangle and you assign each side of the rectangle the same length that you are in the 2 numbers that you're multiplying together. And if you remember, if we had like a 2 here and a 4 here, and we got 2 times 4, 8, The answer that's on the inside of the box represents the area, the number of square units that are on the inside of the box. Well, here we're going to keep that same illustration, but what we're going to start with is the answer, 8. 8's on the inside of the box. That represents our square units. That represents our answer, and we're given one length of our side of the rectangle. And the question is, what's the other length of the side? Well, in order to find out what this other length is, remember this number times this number has to equal the number on the inside of the rectangle. Well, the reverse is true. Start with the number on the inside of the rectangle. This divided by this equals this. Well, what is 8 divided by 2? Well, 8 divided by 2, and I'm going to go ahead and erase that question mark here. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 8 divided by this 2 equals 4. And same here, if we start and we divide by the length of this side, 8 divided by 4 equals the length of this side, which is 2. So once again, this illustration shows you not only how you can multiply to get the answer on the inside, but you can use the same illustration and work backwards to find out by dividing. 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Next, up to this point, you've probably seen division written several different ways. The most common way that you probably started off with is you have this division sign. This represents 8 divided by 2. Well, another way of writing 8 divided by 2 is to use this division symbol here, a horizontal line with a dot above it and a dot beneath it. So in this one up here, it's what's inside the division sign is what you start with. This is 8 divided by 2. This is not 2 divided by 8. 8 divided by 2. In this one, however, the number that's first is what counts, 8 divided by 2. Here you read the second number first, and that's the way you start. Here you read the first number first, and that's how you pronounce the division problem. Lastly, division can also be represented by fractions, by a fraction bar. Here we have the fraction 8 over 2. Well, that's the same thing. Remember, from fractions, it's top number divided by bottom number. So this fraction bar is the same as another method for indicating division. 8 divided by 2. And the answer to that question is, of course, 4. So the answer up here, 8 divided by 2, 8 divided by 2, 8 divided by 2, they all equal 4, and these are 3 different ways of all writing a division problem. And just as we can check problems from before, we were able to check our addition problem by taking our answer and subtracting one of the numbers that we added to it to find out if we added correctly. Well, here in our division problem, 8 divided by 2 equals 4, we can check our answer to see if it's correct by taking this number over here and multiplying it by the denominator of this fraction over here. After multiplying those two numbers together, it must equal what's in our numerator, the top portion of our fraction over here. So it's 8 over 2. 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Is that accurate? We check it by going 4 times 2. Well, 4 times 2 is in fact 8. So you can check your division problem by actually doing a multiplication problem. You multiply your answer and multiply it by the number that you originally divided by, and it should equal the number that you started with. And just as with subtraction, the order in which you divide numbers does matter. Remember, in addition, we could add numbers together and it didn't matter which number we started with, we always got the same answer. 1 plus 10 is the same thing as 10 plus 1. However, in division, that is not the case. 8 divided by 2 is not the same thing as 2 divided by 8. 2 divided by 8 is 1/4. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So it's only with addition and multiplication that you can flip around the order of the numbers that you're multiplying and have it not alter your answer. You cannot do that with subtraction nor with division. Okay, our review page here. Quotient. Anytime you have a division problem, the answer to that problem is called a quotient. Also, in algebra, the fraction bar is the most common way used to indicate division. And the fraction bar is the last method that we just used on the preceding example of 8 divided by 2. And then lastly, if you're given a word problem, Whenever you're given that problem and are told to find the quotient of two numbers, you always need to divide the first number by the second number. So if it said find the quotient of 24 and 6, you would need to go 24 divided by 6. And on the flip side, if you were asked to find the quotient of 4 and 26, or excuse me, 4 and 24, it would be 4 divided by 24. And the answer to that would be 1/6. Carried out would be 0.166, and so on. Okay then, that'll wrap up session 5.